Why overthinkers suffer so much. You ever met someone who's always thinking, always analyzing, always caught up in their own head? You ask them a simple question, and instead of giving you a straight answer, they start running through 100 different possibilities. What if this happens? What if that goes wrong? Maybe I should wait. Maybe I should do more research. And before they know it, they've talked themselves out of everything. Not because the idea was bad, not because the opportunity wasn't right, but because they thought too much. They worried too much. That's what overthinking does. It traps you. It locks you in a mental prison where fear and doubt are your cellmates. You replay conversations from years ago. You analyze decisions you never even made. You worry about outcomes that haven't happened, and all that overthinking, life just passes you by. Now, let's be clear, thinking isn't the problem. You should think, you should plan, you should be strategic. But the problem is when you mistake thinking for doing, because thinking alone changes nothing. Action is what changes your life. You see, overthinkers suffer because they live in a world of what ifs instead of what is. They create mountains out of molehills. They stress over things that in reality don't even deserve a second thought. You ever notice how the people who succeed aren't the ones who sit around debating every little detail? They decide, they act. They learn from their mistakes and keep moving forward. Meanwhile, the overthinker, they're still on step one, still trying to make everything perfect before they even begin. But life doesn't wait. Opportunities don't wait. And success, it rewards the bold, not the hesitant. So here's the truth. Overthinking isn't intelligence. It's fear in disguise. It's the mind's way of avoiding risk. But you can't avoid risk forever. At some point, you have to take the leap. At some point, you have to trust yourself. Because the only thing worse than making the wrong decision is making no decision at all. So stop overthinking. Start living. There's a trap that catches more people than failure ever could. It's not bad luck, it's not lack of opportunity, and it's not even a lack of skill. It's hesitation. It's sitting there overanalyzing, second-guessing, and doubting every little move you make. That's what overthinking does. It keeps you stuck in place while the world keeps moving forward. You know exactly what needs to be done. You have the tools, you have the ability, but instead of taking action, you sit there and think, and think, and think. You tell yourself you just need a little more time. You just need to be sure. You just need to gather more information. And so instead of making progress, you get caught in a loop. You analyze every possibility, every angle, every potential outcome. And the more you think, the less you do. The less you do, the more anxious you become. And before you know it, what started as a simple decision turns into a mental battlefield where nothing feels right anymore. You see, overthinking isn't harmless. It's not just a small bad habit that slows you down. It's a form of self-sabotage. It's the reason opportunities slip away. It's the reason you stay in the same place, watching other people get ahead, while you're still trying to figure out the perfect move. And that's the illusion. Overthinkers think they're being careful. They think they're being smart, but in reality, they're just delaying. They're just postponing action out of fear, because the truth is, it's never really about needing more time. It's about being afraid to take the next step. That's why overthinking causes so much suffering. Because deep down, you know you should be moving forward. You know you're capable of more. You know you're wasting time. And that internal battle, that war between what you should do and what you actually do is exhausting. It drains you. It fills you with regret. It makes you feel like no matter what you do, you're always behind. And the longer you stay in that state, the further it becomes to break free, because here's the reality: thinking doesn't create results. Doing does. No matter how much you analyze, no matter how much you strategize, at some point you have to act. At some point you have to stop planning and start doing, because you can have the best ideas in the world, you can have the perfect strategy, but if you don't execute, none of it matters. And that's the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck. Successful people don't wait for the perfect moment. They don't need every answer before they move. They trust themselves enough to take action, adjust as they go, and figure things out along the way. But the overthinker, they can't do that. They need certainty. They need guarantees. They want to know exactly how things will turn out before they even begin, but life doesn't work that way. Business doesn't work that way. Success doesn't work that way. The only way you get answers is by taking the first step. The only way you gain clarity is by stepping into the unknown and figuring it out as you go. But overthinkers don't trust the process. They think if they just analyze a little longer, they'll find the perfect answer. But perfection is a myth. And waiting for it is the reason so many people never start. That's the tragedy of overthinking. It robs you of time, it robs you of progress, and worst of all, it robs you of confidence. Because every time you hesitate, every time you delay, you reinforce the belief that you're not ready. You convince yourself that you need more preparation, and the more you do that, the more powerless you feel. And it doesn't stop there. Because overthinking doesn't just affect your goals. It affects your relationships, it affects your happiness, it affects your entire mindset. You ever seen someone replay an old conversation over and over in their head, wondering if they said the wrong thing? Analyzing every word, every tone, every expression. Instead of just moving on, they torture themselves with what if? What if I embarrass myself? What if they took it the wrong way? What if I should have said something different? And so instead of enjoying the present, they get lost in a past that can't be changed. The same thing happens with decisions. An overthinker will stare at two choices for hours, for days, for weeks, trying to make the perfect decision, afraid of making the wrong one. But what they don't realize is that making no decision is a decision. And often it's the worst one. Because while they're stuck in indecision, life moves on. Opportunities pass them by. And by the time they finally choose, it's too late. The moment is gone. The chance is lost. That's why overthinkers suffer, because they miss out on life while they're busy analyzing it. They spend so much time preparing that they never arrive, and the worst part, they know it. Deep down, they know they're stuck. They know they should be further ahead. They know they're standing in their own way. And that realization, that feeling of watching life pass you by while you're stuck in your own head, that's what makes overthinking so painful. But here's the good news. You can break free. You can change. Because overthinking isn't a life sentence, it's just a habit. And like any habit, it can be replaced. It starts with a shift in mindset. It starts with understanding that action beats perfection. That clarity comes from doing, not from thinking. That you don't need all the answers before you start, you just need to start. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, remember this: hesitation is the enemy of progress. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. The more you think, the more doubt creeps in. And the only way to break the cycle is to move. To trust yourself enough to take action, even if it's not perfect. Even if you don't have every detail figured out. Because momentum is built through action, not thought. So stop overthinking, stop hesitating, start moving. Because the only thing standing between you and progress isn't a lack of knowledge or skill or ability. It's the decision to act. There's something about the human mind that's powerful, it's creative, it's capable of solving incredible problems. But it also has a weakness. If left unchecked, it can turn the smallest worries into the biggest fears. It can take something minor and blow it up into something overwhelming. The mind has a way of playing tricks on you, making things seem worse than they really are. And when you overthink, when you let those worries run wild, that's when fear starts to take control. You see, most problems aren't as big as they seem at first. Most situations aren't as bad as your mind makes them out to be. But when you dwell on them, when you replay them over and over, they start to grow. What was once a small challenge suddenly feels like an impossible obstacle. What was once a minor concern now seems like a life-altering decision. And the longer you sit with it, the more it consumes you. That's the trap of overthinking. It takes something manageable and turns it into something terrifying. Think about it. How many times have you stressed about something, spent hours or even days worrying about it, only to look back later and realize it wasn't a big deal at all? Maybe it was a conversation you were nervous about. Maybe it was a decision you were afraid to make. Maybe it was something you thought would go horribly wrong. But when the moment came, everything turned out fine. That's how fear works. It's loud in your mind, but quiet in reality. It grows when you feed it, and the more attention you give it, the stronger it gets. And that's where overthinking does the most damage, because when you give fear too much time, it starts to take over. It starts to control your choices. It stops you from taking risks, from stepping forward, from doing the things you know you should do. And the worst part, most of the things you worry about never even happen. Most of the fears you create in your mind never come true. But by the time you realize that, you've already wasted time, energy, and peace of mind stressing over something that wasn't real to begin with. Fear is like a shadow. It looks big, it looks intimidating, but it has no real substance. The moment you shine a light on it, the moment you take action despite it, it disappears. But overthinkers, they don't shine that light. They don't take action. They sit in the darkness, staring at the shadow, imagining all the ways it could harm them. And in doing so, they make it bigger than it actually is. That's why fear magnifies problems it feeds off inaction. It grows when you hesitate. The longer you wait, the bigger the problem seems. Not is, but seems. That's an important distinction, because reality doesn't change just because you overthink. The situation remains the same. What changes is your perception of it. And perception is everything. A confident person looks at a challenge and sees an opportunity. An overthinker looks at the same challenge and sees a disaster waiting to happen. The challenge itself hasn't changed. The only difference is the mindset. The confident person moves forward. The overthinker stays stuck. And that's the difference between those who grow and those who stay in the same place. It's not about intelligence. It's not about talent. It's about the ability to act before fear takes over. And make no mistake, fear will take over if you let it. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts small, just a thought, just a little doubt. But the more you focus on it, the more you worry, the bigger it gets. Before you know it, it's an avalanche. And by then, it's almost impossible to stop. That's why you have to catch it early. You have to break the cycle before it spirals out of control. How do you do that? Action, because action is the antidote to fear. The moment you step forward, the moment you take even the smallest step, fear starts to shrink. The moment you stop thinking and start doing, your mind has no choice but to focus on the task at hand instead of the endless what-ifs. The problem is, overthinkers don't trust action, they trust thought. They think if they analyze something enough, they'll find the perfect solution, the perfect way to avoid risk, the perfect way to guarantee success. But perfection is an illusion. And the search for it only leads to more fear, because the more you try to predict every possible outcome, the more you realize how many things could go wrong. And the more you realize how many things could go wrong, the more afraid you become. It's a vicious cycle, and it's why overthinkers suffer so much. Because instead of solving problems, they create more. Instead of finding clarity, they create confusion. Instead of reducing fear, they magnify it. And what's the result? Missed opportunities. Wasted time, regret. You look back and realize you spent so much energy worrying about things that never happened. You realize you let fear dictate your choices, and by the time you finally see it, it's too late. The chances you hesitated on are gone. The moments you worried about are over. And the only thing left is the realization that fear stole your time, your peace, and your potential. But here's the truth: fear has no real power. It only has the power you give it. It only grows when you feed it with overthinking, with hesitation, with endless worrying. The moment you stop feeding it, starts to fade. The moment you take action, it starts to lose its grip. Because reality is never as bad as your mind makes it seem. And once you step forward, once you face the thing you were afraid of, you realize it wasn't nearly as big as you thought. So don't let overthinking magnify your fears. Don't let your mind create problems that don't exist. Trust action. Trust yourself. And remember, fear only wins if you let it. There's something that happens every single day all around you. While one person is sitting there thinking, analyzing, and debating, someone else is out there taking action. While one person is wondering if they should start, someone else already did. And the difference: the one who acts moves forward, while the one who hesitates stays exactly where they are. That's the problem with overthinking. It keeps you stuck while the world keeps moving. You ever notice how the people who seem to be winning in life aren't always the smartest? They're not always the most talented. They're not always the most prepared. But they are the ones who take the leap. They're the ones who decide. They're the ones who move. And because of that, they get ahead while the overthinker is still trying to make up their mind. Overthinking is a thief. It steals time, it steals momentum, and worst of all, it steals opportunities. Because opportunities don't wait. They don't pause while you sit there debating every little detail. They come and go, and if you hesitate, they disappear just as fast as they arrived. How many times have you had an idea but waited too long to act on it? How many times have you seen someone else succeed with something you thought about doing? That's what happens when you overthink. You watch other people take the very opportunities you were too slow to grab. And it's not because they were better. It's not because they had some advantage you didn't have. It's because they moved. They understood that success isn't about having everything figured out. It's about having the courage to start even when things aren't perfect. Overthinkers, though, they don't trust action. They trust analysis. They believe that if they just think long enough, they'll find the perfect answer, the perfect plan, the perfect moment. But perfection is a lie. And while they're busy searching for it, someone else is out there winning with an imperfect plan, making mistakes, learning as they go, and getting better because of it. That's the part overthinkers don't see. They assume the people who take action always had it all together. They assume success came because of certainty. But certainty doesn't come before action, it comes because of action. You don't gain confidence by thinking, you gain it by doing. You don't learn by sitting on the sidelines, you learn by getting in the game. But overthinkers, they don't trust that process. They need guarantees. They want to know exactly how things will turn out before they even begin. But life doesn't work that way. Business doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't work that way. The only way to know how something will turn out is to try. The only way to get clarity is to step forward. But overthinkers never take that step, and because of that, they stay in the same place while someone else passes them by. And here's the thing, the gap between success and failure isn't always talent. It's not always intelligence. It's not even always effort. Sometimes it's just speed, just speed. Sometimes the only difference between winning and losing is who took action first. You ever see two people with the same idea, the same resources, the same opportunities, but only one succeeds? It's not luck. It's not fate. It's the fact that one of them acted while the other one hesitated. Because the truth is, you don't need a perfect plan. You just need to move. You just need to start. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates results. The more you do, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get. The better you get, the more confident you become. And suddenly, the thing you were overthinking becomes second nature. But the overthinker, they never reach that stage because they never start. They stay in their head waiting for the right time, the right feeling, the right circumstances. And by the time they finally decide to act, the opportunity is gone. The chance has passed. And someone who wasn't smarter, wasn't better, wasn't more talented, grabbed it instead. And here's the hard truth. Life doesn't reward those who wait too long. It rewards those who move. It rewards those who take the shot, who put themselves in the game, who take the risk even when they're unsure. You ever hear someone say, I had that idea years ago, but they never did anything with it? You ever see someone complain that they were just about to start something, but someone else beat them to it? That's what happens when you overthink. You don't just lose time, you lose opportunity. And the worst part, the regret. Because once the moment is gone and once the door closes, you don't get it back. And that's when you realize the pain of hesitation. That's when you understand that overthinking costs you more than just a little extra time. It costs you growth, it costs you experience, it costs you progress. But here's the good news, you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to keep missing out. You can break the cycle, and it starts with a simple decision to act, to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating the moment. To stop thinking about what could go wrong and start focusing on what could go right. Because here's the truth, most decisions aren't as big as they seem. Most actions don't require endless thought. And most of the time, the only thing stopping you isn't a lack of knowledge or skill, it's just fear. Fear of making the wrong choice, fear of failing, fear of looking foolish. But guess what? Making no choice is worse. Failing to act is the only real failure, because when you don't try, you guarantee your own failure before you even start. So stop hesitating, stop overthinking, stop watching other people take the opportunities that could have been yours. Start moving. Start acting. Start doing, because the future doesn't belong to those who wait, it belongs to those who go for it. There's something important about life that most people don't realize until it's too late. The pain of overthinking doesn't just come from stress, anxiety, or fear. It comes from something much deeper, the pain of regret. Because at the end of the day, what truly hurts isn't the mistakes you made, the risk you took, or even the failures you experienced. What really eats away at you are the chances you never took, the opportunities you let slip away, the moments you could have lived fully but didn't. You see, overthinking doesn't just steal your peace, it steals your future. It steals your potential. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of inaction where you're always analyzing, always second guessing, always worrying. And while you're stuck in your head, life is moving on without you. The world keeps turning. Opportunities come and go. Other people take the chances you hesitated on. And before you know it, time has passed, and all you've left is the realization that you could have done more, been more, lived more if only you had stopped thinking and started acting. There's nothing worse than looking back and realizing that you let fear control you, that you allowed doubt to hold you back, that you spent so much energy trying to avoid mistakes that you ended up making the worst mistake of all, doing nothing. Because that's the greatest irony of overthinking. The people who do it believe they're protecting themselves. They think if they just analyze everything enough, they can avoid failure, avoid rejection, avoid discomfort. But in trying to avoid those things, they end up experiencing the worst pain of all, the pain of regret. Regret is different from failure. Failure is temporary. You try something, it doesn't work, you learn, you grow, you move on. Failure is part of progress, but regret lingers. Regret stays with you because you can't go back. You can't change the fact that you didn't act, that you let fear win, that you let your own mind talk you out of something that could have changed your life. And here's what most people don't realize: failure isn't as bad as you think it is. You survive it, you learn from it, you get stronger because of it. But regret haunts you. Regret stays in the back of your mind, whispering, reminding you of what could have been. And that's a pain that never really goes away. Think about the moments in your life that you regret the most. They're not the times you tried and failed. They're the times you never tried at all. The times you wanted to speak up but stayed silent. The times you wanted to take action but hesitated. The times you wanted to chase a dream but talked yourself out of it. Those are the moments that hurt the most. Because deep down you know you had a chance, but you let it slip through your fingers. And the worst part, life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't pause while you overanalyze and debate every little detail. It moves forward whether you take action or not. And if you're not careful, you wake up one day and realize you spent years waiting for the right moment only to find that the moment is gone. That's why overthinking is so dangerous. Because it doesn't just cost you peace of mind, it costs you life itself. It keeps you stuck in the same place while time moves on. And one day you look back and realize that all the things you wanted to do, all the dreams you had, all the risks you were too afraid to take are now just memories of what could have been. But here's the good news: you don't have to let overthinking steal any more from you. You don't have to keep missing out on life because of fear and hesitation. You can make a different choice right now, today. Because here's the truth: no matter how much you think about something, you'll never have all the answers. You'll never be completely ready. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be risk. But that's not a reason to do nothing. That's a reason to move anyway. Because action is the only way forward. Action is the only way to grow. Action is the only way to experience life fully, to create the future you want instead of just dreaming about it. And the more you act, the less power fear is over you. The more you step forward, the more you realize that most of your fears were just illusions created by your own mind. So don't let overthinking rob you of another opportunity. Don't let fear keep you trapped in hesitation. Pray for the perfect moment. It doesn't exist. The only moment you have is right now. And if you don't take it, someone else will, because in the end, life isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about making the most of the time you have. It's about living fully, embracing the uncertainty, and moving forward even when you're afraid. Because the greatest pain in life isn't failure, it's regret. And the only way to avoid that pain is to take action before it's too late. There's something you need to understand about overthinking. It doesn't just waste time. It doesn't just drain your energy. It doesn't just make you anxious. It does something far worse. It kills your confidence. It makes you doubt yourself at every turn. It turns every decision into a struggle. It makes you question your abilities, your choices, your instincts. And before you know it, you're no longer just overthinking a decision, you're overthinking yourself. You're trapped in a cycle where you don't trust your own judgment, and that is one of the most dangerous places to be. Because confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build, and you don't build it by sitting around thinking. You build it by doing. You build it by taking action, by making decisions, by moving forward even when you're not completely sure. Every time you take a step, you learn. Every time you try something, you gain experience. And with that experience comes confidence. Because confidence doesn't come from knowing everything, it comes from trusting yourself to figure it out. But when you overthink, you never get that experience. You never build that trust in yourself. Instead, you're stuck in an endless loop of doubt, questioning everything, worrying about every possible outcome. And with every hesitation, your confidence shrinks just a little bit more. You start to believe you're not ready. You start to think you don't have what it takes. And after a while, it's not just a habit, it's your identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who can't make decisions, someone who isn't capable, someone who always hesitates. And once that belief sets in, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because here's the truth: whatever you tell yourself, you will prove yourself right. If you tell yourself you're not ready, you'll find reasons why you're not. If you tell yourself you need more time, you'll convince yourself it's true. If you tell yourself you're not capable, you'll act in a way that reinforces that belief. But if you tell yourself you can handle it, that you can figure things out as you go, that you don't have to be perfect to get started, then you start to act like it. You start to move differently. You start to trust yourself, and with every step, that confidence grows. Overthinking is the opposite of trust. It's the belief that you can't handle it. It's the fear that if you make a mistake, everything will fall apart, but that's not how life works. Life rewards those who move. Life rewards those who trust themselves enough to take the first step, even when they're not sure. Because the truth is, most of the things you worry about never even happen. Most of the fears in your mind are just illusions. And most of the time, the only thing stopping you isn't reality, it's you. Think about the most confident people you know. They're not confident because they have all the answers. They're confident because they've trained themselves to act, to trust, to adapt. They know they can figure things out as they go. They know they don't need to have it all planned out in advance. They know that action leads to clarity, not the other way around. And that's the difference. Overthinkers wait for clarity before they act. Confident people act in order to get clarity. Overthinkers want guarantees before they move. Confident people move knowing they'll figure it out along the way. Their overthinkers are afraid of making mistakes. Confident people understand that mistakes are just part of the process. And the more you act, the more you start to realize something, the things you were so afraid of, they weren't as bad as you thought. The decisions you struggled with, they weren't as big as you made them out to be. The worst case scenarios you obsessed over, they rarely happened. And even when they did, you handled them. You adapted. You figured it out. And that's where real confidence comes from, not from knowing everything, but from knowing that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. But you'll never get there if you keep overthinking. Because overthinking keeps you stuck in fear. It keeps you from learning. It keeps you from growing. And worst of all, it keeps you from trusting yourself. And if you can't trust yourself, you'll never have the confidence to step into the life you truly want. So how do you stop the cycle? How about you break free from the doubt, the hesitation, the fear? You take action. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's scary, even when you don't feel ready. You start making decisions faster. You start trusting your gut. You start reminding yourself that you don't need to know everything, you just need to start. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. The more you act, the less you overthink. The more you trust yourself, the easier decisions become. The more you move forward, the more confidence you gain. And before you know it, you're no longer someone who hesitates, you're someone who moves. You're no longer someone who doubts, you're someone who trusts. You're no longer stuck in your head, you're out there living, experiencing, growing. Because confidence isn't something you wait for, it's something you create. And the only way to create it is to stop overthinking and start acting. So now you know the truth. Overthinking isn't just a bad habit, it's a thief. It steals your time, your confidence, your opportunities. It keeps you stuck while life moves forward. It makes you watch from the sidelines while others take the chances you hesitated on. And worst of all, it fills your future with regret. But you don't have to let it control you any longer. You don't have to keep living in doubt, hesitation, and fear. You can break the cycle. You can take back control. And it starts right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not someday. Now make the decision to act. Make the decision to trust yourself. Make the decision to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating momentum. Because your future isn't built by thoughts, it's built by action. So take that first step. Make that call. Start that project. Say what needs to be said. Do what needs to be done. Because the only thing standing between you and the life you want is action. No more hesitation. No more doubt. No more excuses. Just movement. Just confidence. Just doing. Because the moment you stop overthinking and start acting, that's the moment your life truly begins.